MMA at its core is a simple sport. It's all based around people training and using their bodies to hurt their opponents. As MMA continues to develop and grow as a sport, so do its offensive maneuvers. All it takes is for one person to try out a new technique, and it catches like wildfire across the MMA world. Some techniques, however, have become so specific to certain individuals that they become signature moves. Without further ado, here are the top 10 signature moves in UFC history. Number 10. The Stockton Slap. The Diaz brothers have always carried a certain reputation in mixed martial arts for not caring about anything and seeing the world as Diaz versus everybody. With that in mind, the Stockton Slap is the perfect signature move for MMA's most notorious duo. Let me take a minute to break this move down for you. The Diaz brothers are well respected for their boxing ability. The way they mix up their shots has always been impressive, throwing long, looping combinations with varying degrees of power. Then throw a shot in that mix that normally comes hidden between punches. A shot that symbolizes the Diaz code of life. An open-handed slap right across the face of the opponent. Is it a disorienting attack that throws an opponent off defending the following punches? Absolutely it is, but that's not why it's on the list. It's on the list because it's the most gangster move on the list, and sums up the Diaz brothers to a T. Think about the first Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor fight. Diaz is looking to close in on what is by far the biggest moment of his career, a win over McGregor after stepping in on late notice. That being said, he's walking the seemingly exhausted McGregor down, hitting the biggest PPV star in the world with combinations and following with patented Stockton slaps. The Diaz brothers and the Stockton Slap is simply a match made in heaven. Number 9. Jose Aldo's leg kicks. It's easy for some fans to forget just how good Jose Aldo was when he was a UFC champion. Even crazier to think he's still only 33. In his reign as WEC champion, into being the only UFC featherweight champion for some time, Aldo ascended to the top of the pound-for-pound rankings. Though also known for his defensive abilities, Aldo's biggest strength was his offense and variety of attacks. Able to outdo any other featherweight when on the feet, Aldo's kickboxing skills were on another level. His leg kicks in particular showed a side to striking that not many used and has gone on to be one of the most decisive factors in UFC fights today. Perhaps the most famous use of leg kicks in MMA history came in the WEC, when Aldo defended his title against Uriah Faber, repeatedly slamming Faber's legs with his incredibly powerful kicks, causing his legs to swell up in cartoonish fashion. So why is such a feared weapon this low on the list? Well, since becoming UFC champion, Aldo hasn't used his kicks as much, especially in recent times, potentially due to the threat of being taken down. It still makes the list though, because everyone knows that he has that in his arsenal, so even if he doesn't use it all that much, it's always a big factor in his fights. Number 8. The H-Bomb. There has always been a stereotype of American fighters as wrestlers with big overhands. No one embodies that style better than MMA legend Dan Henderson. A former Strikeforce and Pride champion, Henderson also had 2 runs in the UFC. Though they weren't as successful as his runs in other promotions, Henderson still made a massive mark in the UFC, as did his signature weapon. Regarded as one of the most dangerous weapons in MMA history, Dan Henderson's right hand had the power of a train behind it all the way through his career. It was the difference maker in almost all of Henderson's wins, and even had its own nickname, the H-Bomb. The H-Bomb became its own signature move thanks to its reputation, backed up by one of the most iconic knockouts in MMA history. Dan Henderson's KO of Michael Bisping at UFC 100 will never not be on the UFC highlight reel. It's quite possibly the most perfect overhand right thrown in the sport's history. Not to mention the follow-up shots. The H-Bomb's relationship with Michael Bisping didn't end there though, as it dropped Bisping twice in what would be Henderson's last pro fight, just losing out on winning the middleweight title at UFC 204. Number 7. Daniel Cormier's slams. Watching a man pick up his opponent, hold them in the air, and then slam them down has always been one of the most entertaining aspects in MMA. Looking like a pro wrestling move, it's a symbol of absolute dominance against your opponent, and no one does it better than DC. One of 4 UFC champions to hold belts in multiple divisions consecutively, Daniel Cormier is praised as one of the sport's all-time grapplers due to his wrestling ability. Cormier's tendency to pick his opponents up, hold them in the air, slam them down, and then clamp onto them has been a feature of almost all of his fights. The range of opponents Cormier has been able to do this to is equally impressive, from the massive Josh Barnett to Alexander Gustafsson to UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. The simple fact is, if your name's not John Jones, you're going for a ride that you aren't getting back up from. unless it's the end of the round, of course. Combining his trademark slams with his ability to keep opponents grounded and wear them out turns this signature move into a deadly weapon that has caused the end for many contenders. Number 6. St-Pierre's Superman Punch. During his welterweight title run, Georges St-Pierre was the best mixed martial artist on the planet. Most of his success came down to how well-rounded he was in all aspects of the sport. The threat of St-Pierre's incredible takedowns caused his opponents to remain hesitant on the feet in fear of a well-timed double leg. By his own admission, GSP was not an elite striker, but by threatening takedowns, he was able to outstrike his hesitant opponents. A key weapon in GSP's striking offense was the Superman Punch. Delivered with exceptional explosiveness, GSP used this spring-forward attack to catch opponents off guard who were expecting a level change. A flashy but often not overly effective technique, GSP used it to his advantage to close distance and keep challengers guessing, a useful tool in his varied arsenal. Number 5. The notorious left hand. Next up on the list, a signature move that has won more money than all the others put together. Conor McGregor's run from his UFC debut to becoming a simultaneous double world champion was nothing short of legendary, and it was all built off of his left hand. Utilizing his kicks, feints, and footwork, McGregor would lead opponents onto his straight left-hand shot, a simple technique that never failed. With incredible power, speed, and accuracy, McGregor used that one shot to make history in the UFC on several occasions. The Notorious made one of the most basic techniques in the sport his signature move by what he was able to accomplish with it. The 13-second counter left-hand KO of Jose Aldo is reason enough for it to make the list. In the words of the man himself, nobody can take that left-hand shot. Number 4. Jon Jones's kicks, spinning elbows. Jon Jones is in most people's eyes the greatest of all time. Following on from GSP's philosophies, Jones's well-rounded game allows him to make his opponents fight in uncomfortable situations. Two of Jones's key offensive maneuvers allow him to keep his opponents off guard in multiple ranges. Jones uses oblique kicks to the legs of his opponents to keep them at range, where he has the advantage, a move synonymous with his fighting style. On the flashier end, Jones's use of spinning elbows when opponents get in close is unparalleled. The speed and accuracy of such a wild attack is on another level. Just look at that one he landed on Alexander Gustafsson to change the momentum of their first fight. Though not completely unique to Bones, he became the first person to make them a staple of his game, and no one does it quite like the GOAT. Number 3. Dominick Cruz's footwork. There have been plenty of fighters in the UFC with great footwork, but none come close to Dominick Cruz. Cruz's herky-jerky movement patterns are not only one of the most identifiable things in the sport's history, but one of the greatest weapons also. Though fighters have certainly learnt lessons from Cruz in the way he drew his opponent's attacks and used his footwork to get in and out of exchanges, no one has been able to replicate it. This was shown heavily in Cruz's comeback when he fought TJ Dillashaw for the title he was forced to vacate due to injuries. The defending champion in TJ Dillashaw is by far the closest to Cruz in terms of the way he moves. Despite this, Cruz used his footwork and off-timing to frustrate Dillashaw, who spent the second half of the fight headhunting a Cruz that was never there to be hit. Cruz's composed approach won him back his bantamweight title via a split decision. It's a move that simply cannot be replicated. Number 2. The Khabib Tangle. Going undefeated in a career in MMA has proven to be an almost impossible task. So few have managed to make it far in their careers without getting caught by a shot or coming up against someone who counters your style. This has not been a problem for current lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. With a pro record of 28-0, very few of Khabib's opponents have had any sort of success against him, and only 2 can argue they even won a round against him in the UFC. This reign of domination comes from Khabib's specialty in grappling, able to consistently take his opponents down, keep them there, and find positions to land ground and pound. Khabib is a machine. Though for the most part, Khabib's trademark style is nothing new, it's just better than we've ever seen anyone do it, he does have one signature move in his locker. Nicknamed by fans the Khabib Tangle, Khabib uses his legs to tie up the limbs of his opponent. By tying the legs of his opponents together, from this position, Khabib lands his savage ground and pound and work submissions. This simple but effective technique is what allows Khabib to completely control his opponents on the ground. Domination has been the story of Khabib's undefeated career, and his signature leg tangle has spelt the end, or at least a very long round, for many opponents and challengers. Number 1. Rouseys Armbar. No submission has ever been so synonymous with one fighter as is the case with Ronda Rousey in the armbar. Rousey's specialty in judo allowed her to bully opponents to the floor with her strength and start working on securing her best technique. She incredibly won her first 8 professional and her 3 amateur fights, all via armbar submission. A sub over Cat Zingano added to that means 9 of Rousey's 12 pro wins came via that one technique. Her ability to finish her opponents in rapid succession backed up her persona outside of the cage and made her into a superstar. After defeating Miesha Tate for the Strikeforce title in the biggest women's MMA fight to date and defending the belt, Rousey was crowned the first ever female UFC champion when Strikeforce was dissolved into the UFC in 2013. She defended the UFC belt 6 times, including 2 of the fastest title fight wins in UFC history: Alexis Davis in 16 seconds and Cat Zingano in 14. She also defended the belt, in theory, that she had won from rival Miesha Tate in a rematch, submitting her again and breaking her arm. There has never been a fighter in MMA whose whole career was built around one specific move like Rousey. Her downfall came once she fell in love with striking and started chasing knockouts. Though many use this to discredit Rousey, her UFC run and armbar submissions will go down in the history books.